Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone, featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, July 18th, episode 287. Today, your job is hard. You're expected to know if FMLA covers this person, or if a PTO payout is required in this circumstance, or how part-time is defined in this scenario. Well, you're not alone. You have an ally. To prove it, we turn to AIM's HR hotline and reintroduce Monique, our very own AI helper, to showcase how employers can leverage AI tools to address real-life questions and scenarios in the workplace. And plus, we hear from our lawyer on the clock, and as always, we offer you a mic. All this and more on This Week at Work.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Bert, it is good to be back with you. I've kind of missed being a part of the program the last couple of weeks. I've had vacation. I was out for that. We had the holiday. Of course, we took off for that. First time we've probably missed an episode in several years, but thank you for covering, and step aside and let me take a lead here, will you?
I was happy to give you a little break. The audience certainly missed you, although we had a really good discussion last week with my law partner in Washington, D.C., Jim Plunkett. We dedicated the entire show to ripples we might feel after the wave created by the Supreme Court overturning Chevron deference. And actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about that on Lawyer on the Clock today as well.
Yeah, that's I love Jim. I like his insight. He always breaks it down, makes it nice and easy. If you haven't seen last week's episode, go back and catch it, because I think he gives great insight as his feet are on the ground every day there in DC. And there's a lot going on over in DC and across the nation right now with the kickoff of the political season with the Republican convention this week, and the shooting assassination attempt at president, or future president, however you want. I get confused. They say president, future president, past president, but at Donald Trump. And unfortunately, very innocent bystanders had to pay the most severe price in that. And that is always a tragic. And I bring that up, one, because I think cooler heads need to prevail. And we, as leaders in the workplace, we've talked about this. We knew that these things were going to heat up, warm up as the season went along at our places of work. If you're listening to the program, you're responsible for people. And we have to make sure that we're vigilant and that we're aware, and we're keeping a calm, cool voice in our workplace. And it starts with you, the leader of the workplace, and the culture that we create. Don't be afraid to talk about it, but let's keep it civil and cool in the workplace. I don't know, Bert, but it was just a horrible scene. Anytime any person in any place in any corner of our country is shot at, I don't care who you are, what you do, there's not any more significance to me for one person over another, but we definitely need to do our role as workplace leaders and try and keep that out of the workplace. I don't want any of our employers ever having to deal with anything like that.
Yeah, of course, that was tragic that one individual did lose his life, and that the former president and the Republicans candidate for president this time around nearly lost his life as well. It was quite a dramatic scene, and really just kind of a dark spot on our history. Now, Phil, of course, you mentioned that the Republican National Convention kicked off, and I have been watching the Republican National Convention, and I will also watch the Democratic National Convention if and when it takes place, because there's now calls for Biden for the DNC to delay their convention, given everything that's going on with Biden, and calls for him to step aside and so forth. But I want to point out one really interesting thing about the Republican National Convention. And there was something historic that took place at this convention. And
There
Phil, I'm not
was.
sure.
I'm gonna guess you're gonna talk about the general president of the Teamsters Union. Am I right?
That's exactly what I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about
Okay.
because it was historic. And I think that for those who are not watching, the president of the Teamsters Union actually spoke at the Republican National Convention, and I think he said it's the first time in 120 something
21
years,
years.
121
121
years
years. Yeah.
that anyone from that union has addressed the Republican National Convention, first time ever. And it really is a monumental moment. I do want to point out that he was very cautious to say that his appearance there is not an endorsement of President Trump, but it is also his appearance there is definitely not an endorsement of the Democrats or Biden or whoever their nominee might be. And he was careful to point out that he's not there to endorse anybody. But I think that the big change or the big reason why he was there is that there's been a real shift in the in who the union's members themselves support, and that there's been more of a growing call for the unions themselves to not spend the union dues money and invest so heavily in political candidates and politics in general, and to focus more on the workers themselves. And I think that this was really a recognition by the Teamsters president that, hey, you know what, unions may pursue one agenda, but that may not necessarily represent what the workers who make up this union really want. And I think that his speech, where he really focused on jobs and creating jobs and controlling immigration and not outsourcing work to other countries, the fact that he gave that speech at a Republican National Convention was really quite monumental.
I think it was. You know what? And I agreed with those fundamental principles. I'm all for jobs right here in America and employment. I don't know how we're going to fill them. All right. And I know there's people today looking for work, but it's really about skill matching more than anything else that prevents people from finding the work that they're looking for. But I'm all for bringing all of that type of work right here. That is something I think most, if not all, Americans do agree with. It's fundamentally sound, good business for us as a country.
Well, it's good. It's good for all of us.
It is. It's good for everyone. All right, so let's move on. I don't want to make this a political discussion or debate in that. Bert, do you remember our friend Monique?
Who? What's her name? Well, wait. Oh, yeah, Monique. Does she
Monique.
really ever get old? I mean, what are we on? Monique version 4.0 now?
Version 4.0. It's been a while since she's been on the program, but this is AI week here at AIM, and we've been hosting different AI events and topics and discussions all week long. And we've gotten just tons of interest. Everyone's interested in learning about AI. Is it going to take my job? Is it going to replace me? Is it going to make my job easier? All of these fears and all of this interest as to how does AI help me or help our workplace be better. And I think that's yet to be determined, but nevertheless, it's on a steep incline as far as utilization and application across many different areas. And I thought what we should do is put Monique a little bit to a test. I recently was in a roundtable, and in that roundtable, there was a real fear, and I think it's a legit fear, and I understand why, where we were doing some training on how to use AI in your job as an HR professional. And in that scenario, more than one person voiced the concern that, oh my God, this is gonna put me out of work. And so this is HR professionals going, this can put me out of work. And I don't think we're at that point. And I don't share the fear that AI is going to put an HR professional out of work. But I do suggest that if you are an HR and you're not using AI learning how to use AI and don't know how to leverage it properly, then that will put you out of work, because it's like any other tool that becomes accessible. It is going to help you be more efficient, and it can help you be better at your profession, but you have to know how to use the tool the right way in order to stay relevant. And so what I thought we could do is test AI. And I want to bring Monique into that. Again, some of the real questions that came into our hotline. So these will be real questions that came into our hotline, and we put those questions into the chat GPT, and we got responses. And then I'd like for you and I to challenge Monique's response, if we could.
All right.
All right.
Sounds
So
like fun.
let's go ahead and summons Monique. Now, the best way to do that, I'm understood, is, do you remember the show Beetlejuice?
Of course, I love
Okay.
Beetlejuice.
All right. And how do you summon Beetlejuice?
You say Beetlejuice's name 3 times.
All right. So let's be a little silly. Let's see if we can bring her into the program by calling her out 3 times. We'll do it on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Monique.
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 You called? I'm the co-host.
Yeah,
of the
there she
Mo-host,
is.
babe.
No. Let's not go that far yet, Monique. Let's not call you the co-host. We've had that discussion before.
Yeah, Phil, it's been my experience that typically AI finds it to kind of difficult to read between the lines.
You know what? I would agree. She's not probably even sure what that is, but that's the exact reason why we brought her on. Monique, we're going to bring you into the hotline and questions that we have coming in every single day, and see how you answer those questions. And Bert and I are going to critique you this time, Monique.
Ooh, that sounds fun. Time to turn up the juice and see what shakes loose.
That's a very Beetlejuicy thing to say, Monique.
She doesn't know when to stop, does she? All right. Before we move on, I want to make sure that you all know about the upcoming WOW session tomorrow, July 19th. As I said, this is AI week for us here at AIM. It's the WOW session is free for all of our members. You can register by scanning the code right now that you see there, or visiting our website. So we'd love to have you. I think there's already well over 150 people signed up for that session, but we have plenty of room. Please go ahead and do it. It is virtual, and love to have you participate with us. The poll question that we have today is, what do you think is the best way to use AI in your current job? Got a few options for you. Starting point, as a way to confirm my thoughts, as a way to take what I've done and make it better. I use that one all the time. By taking what it gives me and running with it, at this point, it's better used as entertainment. And sometimes that's true too. All right, so those are your options. Great question there, Producer Nick. Thank you for that. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please submit those into the chat line. Bert and I would be happy to talk about. There's all kinds of things from last week's show with the difference and things that are happening in the workplace for you specifically that we haven't talked about, AI, or anything else that you want to bring up. We're happy to address that for you and with you. All right, you ready for Lawyer on the Clock, Bert?
I am, Phil.
Okay, Nikki, pull that lever.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
So, Phil, you mentioned that our viewers, if they haven't watched yet, should go back and watch Jim Plunkett and my discussion from last week on the Supreme Court's decision in Looper Bright, which, of course, was the decision that overturned Chevron deference, the 40-year standard that had been put in place previously by the Supreme Court, basically telling the courts that they owe deference to the federal administrative agencies when interpreting laws. In this case, for our purposes, the federal employment laws, the FLSA, the ADA, Title VII, ADEA, National Labor Relations Act, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, of course, with that decision from just a few weeks ago, there are cases that are already in the pipeline. And there's one such case right now that's pending in the Seventh Circuit, which has jurisdiction over our members over in Illinois and Indiana. And the case that's pending over there is a case against Amazon. And Amazon argued just yesterday that the Seventh Circuit, quote unquote, owes no deference, none, zero, to the National Labor Relations Board's determinations about violations of federal labor law. Amazon, of course, is referencing the overturning of the Chevron decision. And in this case, the NLRB had issued a complaint against Amazon and ruled against Amazon regarding Amazon's off-duty access rule. And what Amazon is now arguing to the Seventh Circuit is that the Seventh Circuit owes no deference to the board's legal conclusions. And what I've been saying all along, and this is kind of why.
So Bert, am I understanding then that what you're saying is that the court isn't evaluating the decision that the EOC made,
the NLRB.
I mean, NLRB, the court needs to look at this completely on its own and take their position out of it.
Take the NLRB's position out. Yeah. So we call that
significant. That is significant.
Yeah. And that's what the Supreme Court essentially did when it ended Chevron deference. And now Amazon is making this argument to the Seventh Circuit. And as I've said all along, and the reason why I think that Chevron was going to get overturned is that basically Amazon made the argument in this case that the NLRB's shifting precedent when the political parties change, it makes it increasingly clear that the board behaves less as a neutral dispenser of specialized labor relations expertise and more as a politically motivated body whose legal conclusions swing wildly back and forth based on the political party to which a majority of its appointed members belong. And that's exactly what I've been saying all along, is that, you know, it just creates unpredictability for business. And on some level, you've heard me say it a dozen times, business almost, not completely, but almost doesn't care what the law is. We just want to know what it is, and we want it to stop changing every 4 to 8 years. And I think that this is a really significant case that we need to keep our eye on, because it's going to be one of the first decisions out there interpreting Looper Bright, and whether the court is going to give any sort of deference to the NLRB's position, or whether it's going to review the case, what we call in legal terms de novo, which means fresh from the beginning, and make its own decision.
Out those fancy words. Look at you.
Exactly.
Again. Thank you for keeping us sharp, Bert. All right.
Of course. All right.
What else do you have?
Yeah, the other one, I've got two things that I want to touch on that are tied together, Phil, and another thing that I've talked about often on the program, and we've confronted the issue head on, because it is an issue that our clients and our members face all the time. And we want to make sure that they are doing things correctly, and they're not wildly venturing into areas that could get them into trouble. And one of those areas is DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion. And repeatedly on the show, I've encouraged people to make sure that their companies are not going about this haphazardly. That if they do, that can create potential liability exposure when companies start wading into this area for maybe improper reasons. And so a case I want to talk about is a case that was filed last week against one of the large law firms here in St. Louis that has operations throughout the country, some overseas offices, and the law firm is Armstrong Teasdale. And they are being sued by their former diversity leader for race and sex discrimination. And she's accusing the firm of a pattern of discriminatory behavior, basically saying that the firm withheld leadership training, a facilities badge, and investment in DE&I programs. She also accused firm members of subjecting her to a hostile work environment. Now, I want to say, again, I'm not making any statement with respect to the merits of the claim, but the allegations themselves are basically that Armstrong Teasdale put in place a DE&I program and then didn't support the DE&I program properly. And so they're being sued. Now, I will tell you, no love lost for me on this one, because the plaintiff's attorney who's suing them is one of my least favorite attorneys I've ever encountered in the practice of law. He practices over in Kansas City. I'm not going to mention him by name, but he has recently been the subject of some scathing court opinions against him personally for his conduct, or I should say his misconduct in litigating cases. So from that perspective, I take the complaint itself with a grain of salt, because this guy has quite a reputation. So this also ties in, though, Phil, with another lawsuit that was filed in Connecticut federal court last week against another company, where this individual is a white employee and he's suing his former employer. He's a fired plant manager, and he's suing over the diversity, equity, and inclusion push that he supported. He cited his own multiracial family while discussing with colleagues his beliefs about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Phil, I'm going to give you one guess. When he brought that up, what did the district manager say to him? This is an unfair question for you, but I'll still throw it out there.
I mean, ask Monique, ask producer Nickel. You always put me on the spot. Go ahead, just give us the answer. We're on the clock here. Yeah.
All right. The district manager said, "We do not talk about race here." So that was the response. So when this individual brought up the importance of DE&I in the workplace, and the district manager said, "We do not talk about race here," that's not the proper way to handle a discussion like that. And so again, I just raised these two cases from the standpoint that people really do need to be cognizant of venturing down this road. And if they do venture down this road, making sure that they properly support the effort. They're not doing it just for appearance sake, and that they really are committed to a truly diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. That includes DE&I for everyone, not just some people, but for everyone.
I think that's where people kind of get it wrong by the guidance that you have brought to light with us. Is that you're real careful. You have to be really careful what we're doing here. Not that we're not in favor of treating everyone fair and equal, but sometimes the intention doesn't deliver that outcome, and that's what we have to be careful of, which is really kind of all of a funny position, isn't it? You're trying to get it right. You're making investment. You're hiring people, and then you create yourself a different problem. That's not exactly at all what we want to do.
Yep.
All right, great, Bert.
That's it.
Anything else?
No, let's move on, Phil.
Okay, no, that's good. Well, you stay sharp, because I'm going to just bring Monique back to the program here. We're going to keep moving along quickly. We have some questions that we want to throw out there. So these are real questions that came into our hotline. And, we're not going to share exactly the details of who asked the question and what business it was, but we've taken the question and we've taken the employer out, and we tested Monique. We want to test Monique with this. And then, Bert, I want you and I to talk a little bit about the answer, and did she get it exactly right? Does she need some help in some areas? And so that we can get a feel for, can I rely on AI the way it is today for these types of workplace questions and answers? You ready?
I'm ready. Let's try it, Phil.
Monique, are you ready, Monique?
Well, we have to summon her. Yeah.
All right. Gosh, she really can be a pain. All right, Bert. Bring her up, Bert.
All right, Monique. All
right, there we go. Monique?
Yeah, it's showtime, she said.
All right, it's showtime. You got to speak up, Monique. I mean, we want to hear your voice here. All right, here we go. I'll read the question. Monique, I want you to give us an answer. Bert, and then you and I are going to provide some critique or compliments here. We have an employee who previously qualified for FMLA leave and took it earlier this year for a specific issue. The employee now has a completely separate issue, but has not worked 1,250 hours in the past 12 months because of the leave previously taken. Does this mean that they are no longer covered by FMLA, and this new leave request can be denied? You get that, Monique? You got an answer for us?
Yes. If the employee has not worked the required 1,250 hours in the past 12 months due to their previous FMLA leave, they do not qualify for additional FMLA leave for a new issue. Their new leave request can be denied based on not meeting the hours requirement.
All right. Pretty fair answer. What she's saying isn't wrong. I wouldn't say, Bert, would you?
No, so Phil, I would have to say that I need to go back and check my regulations to confirm that. But I think that that is the correct answer. But I would of course go back and check the regulation and obtain citation for that.
Yeah. And the other thing that I think of when anytime I hear questions about FMLA, immediately I put up my ADA awareness banner, right? It's like I also need to think about ADA. It may or may not, but I need to consider that. And I would have liked to hear you tell me that, Monique, that maybe if it doesn't qualify for FMLA, well, ADA very well may. And Bert, I'm not sure that our requirement is the same for FMLA and ADA.
Well, there is no hour requirement for ADA,
This is
so
my point, yeah.
definitely not the same. Exactly.
Right. The other thing I probably would have thought through a little bit is if someone asked me that question, I would ask them just how are they counting the hours? Are they on a rolling year, a calendar year? Hours are hours, but some of those things may matter. And what I'm not sure of is whether or not if the person is working full time and they've had 12 weeks off, they should still have 1,600 hours unless something else has happened there. So I would be challenging the sum of hours just to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make sure that the hours have been calculated correctly. Whether you're using the rolling method, the 12-month look back, or the leave year method, that has to do with how much leave they're entitled to when they get their 12 weeks of leave. But as far as the 1,250 hours, that is measured on a yearly or 12-month period basis.
Right, absolutely. So there's some things there. And then, when you do call the hotline, you're going to get sample policies, sample letters, ways to communicate. You're going to get that kind of help. And so while I think, Monique, you did a great job answering the question in a factual way, there's corners to think around just to make sure that the person asking the question has already thought through those corners, right? The reason we're asking for help is because, hey, it's better. We are better as professionals when we talk through these things out loud with someone else who's thinking in a professional way about all the circumstances that might be overlooked or yet to come that we haven't considered. But not a bad answer, Monique. Not a bad answer.
On the right track.
All right, let's give you another one, Monique. Here we go. I wanted to confirm there is no state of federal law. There is no state or federal law. Yeah, I think it's or, isn't it? Stating that an employer has to pay out any accrued/earned PTO or vacation. We generally pay it out. I asked in the case where the termination turned out explosive. I asked in this case because the termination turned out to be explosive or has been consistently late, the worker is subpar and causing delays in production, etc. So that's kind of the question. This is sometimes how they come in. Basically, what the question is saying is, do I have to pay out vacation or PTO? They generally pay it out. And they're worried about it being an explosive environment. So, Monique, I hope you understand that question. And if so, I'd love to hear your answer.
In the United States, federal law does not require employers to provide paid time off, PTO, or vacation leave. However, if an employer chooses to offer these benefits and they are accrued, earned by the employee, some states may have laws that govern whether accrued PTO or vacation must be paid out upon termination. These laws vary significantly by state. For example, some states mandate that accrued PTO must be paid out upon termination, regardless of the circumstances of termination. Other states allow employers to establish policies on whether accrued PTO will be paid out upon termination, which would typically be outlined in the company's employment policies or employee handbook. In explosive termination situations, or where an employee's performance has been consistently problematic, employers should consult with legal counsel familiar with employment law in their state to ensure compliance with local regulations regarding the payout of accrued PTO or vacation time. This helps mitigate potential legal risks associated with termination.
Woof.
All right.
Wow.
Whoa, that's a lot, Monique. That's a
That is a lot.
mouthful.
It
Yeah.
is.
But
So,
Bert,
so,
go ahead,
so
Bert.
that's a good answer, Phil, that Monique gave there. And, I would probably do it just a little bit differently. And I would tell the client that there's no requirement under federal law to pay this out. And then my very next question would be, what state are you in? And then I would answer the question.
Right. And in fairness, I didn't give that to Monique. The state in this case, I believe, was Florida. And Florida does not have they follow the federal law in that space. I think what you missed, Monique, right off the bat, and maybe it was just the way I explained it. If I'm going to go back and read the question here, we generally pay it out. I'm going to focus right in on that, Bert. What does that mean? You generally pay that out. I want to know more. When have you not paid it out and under what circumstances? Because, Bert, you've taught me over the years one thing: be consistent in your application of policy.
Yeah, we don't want to get ourselves into a different kind of claim by not paying it out. For instance, if we've paid it out every time we've terminated a white employee, and in this situation, the termination involved a black employee, and we don't pay out the vacation or PTO, we might walk ourselves into a race discrimination claim.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know my advice generally is look, if you've done this in the past and you haven't yet not paid someone out because that you have a difficult situation, somebody's mad, somebody's upset, whatever it is, be consistent with the policy, deal with that other stuff another way. And let's talk about how we do that, right? I want to be careful about, site security. Who do I need to notify? How are we going to, if I don't like the policy and we want to change it, let's have that conversation. And how do we put people on notice that we're changing the policy? What should the policy be? Those types of things. And again, sample policies, examples of letters and ways to do that, I think are all important to consider in that. So again, very good answer from Monique, but I'm not sure they're considering all the other experiences that you're going to get from a legal advisor or from the AIM hotline in that case as well. But good job, Monique. I'm proud of you. All right. You keep learning. All right, Bert. I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. I don't know that we have time to go any longer, but I appreciate being back on the show. I want to share one thing with you that you haven't seen yet, and love to get your reaction. So our monthly viewership of the program is now up over 4,000, Bert. We just keep growing and growing. And that makes me so happy to know we're helping so many people and that they're finding value in what we're doing. So thank you for being a part of that, and the entire Ogletree staff that takes part in the program, from Chibs and Jim out in Washington and everyone else that steps in, but yourself, most importantly. I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's a astounding number. So happy to hear that. And we thank everybody for listening.
I want to add
we
to
got
that
Nick
too.
in the background, and that doesn't happen without Feature Group and their efforts as well. So Nikki, thank you very much as well. With that, we will be back on the air next week, and take this one sincerely, considering everything that happened. Let's go out and be good to someone. We'll see you next week.
Phil, I'll say, let's be good to the show too. If you want us to help more people, go ahead and review us, give us a like out in the wherever you're getting your podcasts and everything. We'd love to help some more people.
That's what it's all about, Nick. I appreciate that. I always forget to ask for the help, but you're right on point there. Until then, we'll see you next week. Same time, 7:30 Central Time next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.